Good morning. Uh, we're here for our weekly morning brief on Tuesday morning. And Craig, uh, this was a less exciting weekend than we've had recently, but still some pretty important things happening. But before we start, I just want to say a word about the late Jesse Jackson, who died overnight. Uh, Reverend Jackson was a really important figure in late 20th century politics and a critically important civil rights leader. Uh, he and I had plenty of battles because at the Democratic Leadership Council with Reverend Jackson, uh, uh, we really fought for a long time over the direction of the party, and the resolution wound up with the election of Bill Clinton as president and changing of the party. I think I found Jesse Jackson a worthy adversary sometimes, but more often than that, particularly in recent years, a very strong ally. And he was a good man, the a gracious man. About 10 years ago, we made a movie on my book, and Jesse couldn't have been more helpful and cooperative in that effort. So I think we're going to miss him. He is responsible for a lot of progress in this country. And I think the way we have to honor his legacy is to protect that progress and then continue to move forward. Because while we may not have always agreed on the means, Jesse was somebody who fought every day of his life for the American ideal.
Yeah, Al, that's very thoughtful. I want to echo that and also say, really, as a measure of the kind of individual he was, there was some pretty significant outreach to him during the Reagan years,
Yeah.
and there was interaction with President Reagan, with certainly Chief of Staff Jim Baker, and a few of us. We wanted to understand his perspective. I think he probably wanted to be somebody who showed he could, cross that bridge and deal with the
Right.
with the other side successfully. But yeah, like you, while we might have disagreed on things, I always had a healthy measure of respect for him.
Well, I guess the big news in Washington this week is that we have another partial shutdown of the government. This time it's pretty limited because it's only affects the Department of Homeland Security. But that's still, I think, 260,000 employees, so it's not a small deal. It doesn't look like it's going to be solved quickly because Congress is out of town. I don't believe they're going to be back until the 23rd, so my guess is nothing will happen in the meantime. But this is a different kind of shutdown because essentially, the Democrats are shutting down the government to try to force changes in the behavior of ICE. And the biggest one, I think, and the one that the administration and the Republicans seem to resist, is the unmasking of ICE agents. And but because the politics also are different, politics in the shutdowns can change rapidly. So, but at least starting out, ICE is very unpopular. Its means of enforcing immigration laws that resulted in the two really murders in Minneapolis have made ICE and ICE tactics sort of an anathema to a lot of voters. So I'm sure the Democrats don't feel much pressure to fund it. But the irony there is that because ICE got such a big increase in funding in President Trump's big beautiful bill, ICE will go on merrily on its own way without really feeling any crunch from the shutdown.
This is a different kind of shutdown for sure. And there's some interesting factors I think can play it. You mentioned them. First of all, it's a partial shutdown, but it is going to lead to people like the folks who work at TSA not getting paychecks, it's it's that's very difficult. These are not people who have great wealth and it can sustain a week or two while the Congress figures out what they're going to do. It's also a week where, as you said, Congress is out, which means people are traveling, which means Congress is going to have to get back into town. And if there are slowdowns at TSA sites, which they say there probably will be, that's going to affect members of Congress. Their voters, their constituents, are going to be struggling with a few things in the shutdown. And on top of all that, I get this sense that the lock that Donald Trump had on Republicans is beginning to crack a little bit. It's and especially with Republicans being home, their constituents don't like shutdowns. They blame the party in power, and that's Republicans controlling House, Senate, and the White House. And they don't like the performance of ICE. They want ICE to perform like law enforcement agents. You know, they don't mask themselves. They identify themselves. They get warrants to go arrest people. So this one, I think, tilts in favor of the Democrats being able to negotiate successfully, in my view. But they can't really do that until Congress comes back, and that's not going to happen until next week. So we're probably, as you say, at least a week away or more from a resolution of this.
Yeah, the TSA thing I think is the big deal in this one, because ICE was going at a $10 billion budget, and it was increased to 85 billion in the in the big beautiful bill. It's now the largest law enforcement entity in the country, larger than the FBI or DEA, any others. So ICE will probably go merrily along, but I think the pressure will come, as you indicated, when we start having disruptions in air travel.
The other thing is, and I'm sure you agree, they have the funding. They don't really have the leadership. There's clearly, based on all kinds of reporting, internal warfare, frankly, between people out of law enforcement and Kristi Noem and her cadre. It's amazing to me that the White House and President Trump have allowed this to continue. In most administrations, you'd have a change, but he hangs in there with Secretary Noem, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a change come there after they get this government back in operation.
Yeah, that's probably right. He obviously feels some of the pressure on ICE because he's pulling out of Minnesota, but it's hard for this president to admit he's wrong on anything. And but as he presses forward, his poll numbers keep going down, and there just have got to be a lot of just absolutely frightened Republicans who understand that the president's approval rating is the biggest indicator of how they're going to do in the midterm. And he's really putting in jeopardy seats that Republicans have won by 10, even 12%. And that's a pretty significant number. So we probably will see a few people fleeing from the president's hold.
I would think so. Well, unrelated to all of that, but I think worthy of just a comment before we leave is I think we should take note of Secretary Marco Rubio, who at the Munich Security Conference talked about how we need to go forward together to the Europeans, in which he got a standing ovation. He got applause throughout his remarks and a standing ovation at the end. I was glad to see he still had an airplane to fly home when it was all over, but maybe the ice is cracking there a little bit too in terms of our relationship with Europe.
I guess I'm more skeptical about that than you are. I mean, there's a very good piece by Ann Applebaum in The Atlantic, where she talks about, I mean, look, Rubio is a great politician, and his tone was clearly much better than Vice President Vance's last year, where he just excoriated the Europeans. But there's really, there's an awful lot of Christian nationalism in that speech. There wasn't, a lot of colonial, good words for colonialism. No mention of Russian or China. So I'm not sure that the speech really uh, uh, indicated a fundamental change in the administration's policy. But the other point is, it doesn't really matter what Rubio says because President Trump sets his own foreign policy. But one of the things that our friend Bill Kristol wrote about this morning, which I think is interesting because this is also, yesterday was President's Day, and we just celebrated Abraham Lincoln's birthday and George Washington's coming up. Our friend Bill Kristol wrote about Rubio's speech, and he said, that foreign policy and wars aren't fought over abstractions. And then he quoted Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence, which obviously was a war fought over principle and an abstraction. And I think that really sort of goes to the heart of the difference, at least I have, with Trump foreign policy. Principles, values aren't a big part of it, it's all power. So I'm not sure we saw much different in Rubio except for the tone, and I'm sure the Europeans were relieved not to have somebody screaming at them.
Maybe it's a first step. We'll see. Hey, well, good to see you.
See ya.
We'll talk later in the week.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.